But yeah, like Travis was saying, there's so many things with the triple that you've got to focus on. And for instance, from the time I take off, the time I hit the ramp, there's like 4 things in my head that I need to do before I get there. And one of those is hooking both feet. So I hook my feet underneath the gear shifter and the brake pedal. Okay. That way you're locked into the bike. And then But
if you hook your feet and then you readjust, it drops the gear, it picks up another gear, it hits false neutral. There's all kinds of stuff there.
You got to be careful. And then for my throttle hand, if I was to ride normal and with this sort of body position and absolutely pin the throttle as much as I could, I'm going to be like this. So when I pull, I'm going to go, you know what I mean? It's not going to be a straight pull. So I always roll the wrist forward so that I can get 100% max throttle on the ramp and I still have a decent body position. That way I can keep the bike. And one thing I learned,
throttle position is actually supplementing your flip,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
But it helps more as the rear tire's in the air. Like you can kind of drop, especially right as you get that zero gravity arc. So your goal is to get 2 flips on the way up, and it's probably about 70 feet above where the top of the takeoff is. And if you can get it here, your goal is to then re-throttle, which drops because that pulls the rear tire down right as you hit that zero gravity point.
I'm going to nod and pretend I fully understand this, but this is really intriguing. No, this is intriguing.
I learned a lot though from Travis with things like that, revving
like what not to do.
And but like one thing that's hard with the triple is obviously you're pulling so hard off the lip, but it's then staying central on the bike because it's super easy to be actually pulled to the front of the bike once you start rotating because the bike's coming one way and your body physically wants to go that way. So you got to kind of switch your core on a lot and kind of tuck in with the bike like that. And that way it keeps it going. And you can actually, I figured out almost how to, and Josh Sheehan does this, speed it up, speed the flips up. Normally the first, second and third get slower and slower and slower. So the third one's just coming around as you're dropping, free falling, but kind of figured out with a few different techniques and body position, you can actually almost not speed them up, but keep them going the same speed all the way around. So that was one thing that helped me massively.
Okay, so I have a question then. Which is more terrifying, the first time you did a single backflip, a double backflip, or a triple backflip?
Triple backflip.
Really?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, even though you'd done flips where you're just like, is it kind of, because you have the full send, right? It's full committing to the...
Scariest thing for me was obviously to warm up to the triple, I did a bunch of double flips, but I'd be pulling as hard as I can, doing 2 and then ejecting in the air and then going and looking at footage and going, okay, I had done 2 by the time I was here. Can I do it? But the scariest feeling for me was like the first time I've done 2 and I'm still in the air and I'm like, all right, stuff it. I'm hanging on. And there's like that split second. And if you hesitate for like a 1/10 of a second and you don't know if you want to commit, you're right, it's done. You're over. You ain't going to make it.
We call it a safety check. So the hardest part, like when you do a single flip, you commit and that's it. You're on the takeoff. You only have to commit once. On a double, you go around and you're looking at the ground as you're going up. Right? So you're just seeing the ground fly away and you're almost starting to come down and you're taking a 250-pound motorcycle and you're pulling it around again. Now on a triple, you hit the takeoff at, freeway plus speeds on this 80-degree takeoff, which is like, you're just all the G-forces you can possibly stand where your body wants to buckle, especially like me personally, because I'm just not that strong. And when you hit the top, you got to get the pop just right. Now, if you get that just right, that's only your first third. So the second one, you got to recenter, pull it around. And if you get to the top, you are now at the absolute peak of your flight. You're 80, 90, 100 feet, whatever you are above the ground. And you see the ground. Now, if you for any time relax or stop getting that pull just right and you hesitate, then you're probably going to die. Like, I mean, not to an airbag, but if you're going to a landing. So you have to commit to this 3 separate times. And each time it's a little bit different because not only that, on the top, when you're ready to do your third flip, you're literally so high above the ground, which first time you really see that height.
Right.
But you go, okay, the next time I see the ground, my wheels are going to hit it. So I've done the first 2 flips as hard as I could. Now, did I do them better? Did I have more adrenaline that time? Did I get a better pop off the lip? Did it come in worse? Do I have time to open up or should I keep pulling? And if you keep pulling, the next time you see it, if you got a perfect pop and a perfect snap and a perfect pull, then you're going to land on your butt from, 80 feet in the air. So it's doing all of this right and committing to all of this and knowing that you're way higher than you've been on like any other trick you've ever needed to do. And then having the whereabouts to be like, okay, how fast do I need to make this last rotation, which goes blind as you're falling out of the sky?
Sounds terrifying. Because I mean, imagine if you like half pull that bike's landing on you at 80 feet in from the air and you're dead. Like
I've done that a heap of times.
Really?
Like in learning, just to the airbag, but a bunch of times before I'd figured out, new techniques or throttle control or whatever. A bunch of times I'm like, yep, I've got it. And I hang on and I literally just land completely on my head. I did it at your house as well, Trav.
No, I giggle.
Like literally 2.5 to my head, to my brain.
No, and you think everyone's like, oh, it's an airbag. I totally do that.
I've been knocked out a bunch of times doing it.
Yeah. Airbag's rough, man.
I got hit in the head with the swing arm once as well. When I was trying triples on a smaller ramp, I was hooked into the gear shifter, like, click and hold so I could stay to the bike. And I was doing 2 and I'm like, nah, not this one. So I went to bail, but my boot was stuck on the foot hook on the gear shifter. So as I bailed, my leg and my boot still being stuck to the bike has pulled the bike down on me and the swing arm hit me in the side of the head. And I was knocked out for like 5 or 6 minutes or something.
Now, just something else to think about here. Now you're hooked to the bike.
Yeah.
So you're sure you're hooked. But if one foot comes out, all of a sudden you're doing a knack, you're spun 90, 180 backwards. Now you don't know which way you're going, but you have so much centrifugal force. If you, like I've seen a guy on a double flip take off and he bailed off in just kind of the wrong spot and the bike flew 50 feet out of the foam pit. So you're actually holding this bike in this one, you and the bike, the center is in between you and the bike. So if you let go, you get flung or the bike gets flung depending on where you are on your rotation.
Interesting.
So if you're that high in the air and you got to think like Josh Sheehan, when he did the triple flip, a couple years ago, he was going, almost 100 feet in the air and he was going 20 feet in distance. So if he bailed out at any time, was like, got scared and like, oh, I'm not going to make it. So even if you decide you're not going to make it on the first flip, you're like, oh, I missed my pop. You have to stay with it because if you eject, you go all the way to flat back behind the takeoff or on the takeoff or out in front of the airbag. Yeah. So there's a lot to it.
Yeah. I think grip tape is one thing that helped me as well. I got some really coarse grip tape, along the whole side panels of my bike. And that's one thing that kind of helps you grip with your knees. It's not perfect, but it definitely helps with keeping your feet locked in because it's so easy to go into a Superman position because your legs, they do want to fly out. And it's like, if that happens, you're in big trouble.
What got you specifically into like motocross? Because you have to be a crazy person. Like Travis is a crazy person. I know that. Like
coming from military, all right.
Crazy person. No, like this is way more terrifying to me to try to do a triple backflip than like
shooting at us.
Yeah, but that's more fun. You get to shoot back. Like, I don't know.
Nah,
that's easy.
You guys are crazy.
It's so funny the way that the brain works because I'm like, if you're like, hey, we got to go hit a target and run at bad guys with a gun, I do that all day.
You're
over
like,
you saying, do a triple backflip into the foam pit. I'd be like, give me my gun and send me to Syria.
But if you asked me to go through, you were the one that like breached the door, right?
Yeah.
If you asked me to do that, I would get knocked out trying to breach the door. So yeah, it's different.
Well, you don't have to backflip into the door. You actually just walk straight into it. Yeah.
But yeah, we got a lot of respect for what you guys do. But I think in certain ways, it's a very similar mindset, to really push yourself to areas that are not comfortable, whether it's busting in a door and confronting a lot of bad guys or trying to do a triple backflip. You're still going to make yourself uncomfortable, but that's what we love for some reason. We love that feeling.
Makes you feel alive.
Yeah. But
until it doesn't.
To answer your question from before, I think what got me into motocross was my dad just bought me a bike when I was 4 years old and I started, obviously just like most other kids start riding and enjoying it. And then I started racing motocross at a pretty high level from when I was 6 to 15 years old. And then a buddy of mine, Cam Sinclair, he's a X Games gold medalist and double backflipper from Australia, legend. We used to live together actually, so I kind of really looked up to him and guys like Travis, and a bunch of people like that I'd seen on TV. So I kind of just I didn't really decide to do freestyle. It wasn't like a plan I had. I just slipped into it. I did my first flip when I was 14, and then I was still racing motocross, still racing Australian titles and stuff like that. So it wasn't anything I planned. I just kind of fell into it and started enjoying it. And then one thing led to another. As soon as I did the double backflip, I think it was that day. I'm like, all right, well, let's try to do 3, I guess.
Natural.
Just one more. It's like me, like with whiskeys at the bar, just one more.
Well, it's also like this. Like you've done an Aussie roll on a dirt bike, which is 2 backflips and a 360.
He accidentally did that when he bent the bars. I was so pissed off. Like he lands, he's like, oh man, I was like, it took me literally, I started doing this on like a trampoline, like a double backflip, but half in, half out on a trampoline. It's like a backflip 180, front flip 180, basically.
Okay.
So you kind of spot the landing a lot when you're on like a trampoline. And then on a bicycle, BMX bike, I kind of do similar, which is, so you're always kind of looking like with skis, like, you see the aerialists, they're always looking at the ground. With a dirt bike, I spin as hard as I can, I flip as hard as I can, and it doesn't really start spinning until you're halfway through. So I try to do a backflip with one full twist. The problem is, it's almost impossible to do. You do like a backflip and then you do a 270 and then you start flipping again. And I'm like, well, it would be easier to do a double backflip 360 than it would be to do a single backflip. And I was already doing those on bicycles. So then it took me 15 more years of practice and convincing myself that my stupid theory that everyone else thought was just cockamamie crap was actually going to be easier and more consistent to try a double backflip 360 than a single backflip 360. Now, the problem with this was I needed to go way, way higher because a dirt bike, it doesn't rotate on it rotates around in a flip pretty quick. With the wheels going the same direction.
Yeah.
But when you try to take it and spin it, if you ever taken like a gyro or anything and you try to move it while it's going, it just wants to kind of go straight. So it's everything it has. So you do a backflip and then basically a 270, you spot your landing and right at that zero gravity point, you basically square up your shoulders and drop again. Well, he bent his bars, hit the thing way too fast. First ever triple backflip attempt, and he does a perfect backflip 360. So now we really need to do is get bars that give out on the takeoff.
Yeah.
Hit it way too
It's
fast.
automatically
He's got
Just
it.
give me a set of bent bars to start off with, and we can just go from there.
Might work.
Well,
I was there
know what
when
I'm
you
gonna
landed that one, but also my point to that is anyone going to ever do that again?
Oh, for sure. It doesn't matter.
Who's trying it right now?
Okay, well, you got to think. When you think of skateboarding, you think of Tony Hawk probably. You think of the 900. You're like, oh, dude, the first one to ever land a 900. There was an 8-year-old at my house that was warming up with 900s trying to get 1080s for the competition he was going to. He does 900 on back-to-back walls.